Hey everybody, it's Rick Trummer from Rick Trummer Consulting and Training. Welcome back. If you remember last week, I was going to put side by side, we're going to put the different processors between all of the different things, whether it's Lightroom or if you're using ACR, and we're going to go through and we're going to kind of show you side by side. I did make one mistake last week, and thank you for someone to point that out, that I completely misspoke about the healing brush being inside this template. It absolutely is there, and I completely misspoke, and I apologize. Sometimes when you're doing these on the fly, you kind of miss some stuff. So last week when I told you, or 2 weeks ago when I told you that you did not have the ability to use the healing brush or the clone tool, and that's completely wrong, of course. These interfaces are absolutely identical, and that's why it just really depends on what you're going to be using them for. That'll get you there. So completely apologize for that. I didn't even realize I made that error until someone pointed it out, and thank you for pointing it out to me. By the way, if you have any suggestions out there, I'm always happy to take those suggestions, and I'll either put them into the video or I'll be able to spread the good news to other folks that I talk to. I talk to a lot of folks when I'm doing these types of things. So thank you again for letting me do this stuff for you. And at the same time, I appreciate all of your comments back to me. This week, we're going to be going side by side. I'm going to be showing you all the different tabs here to show you the comparisons between the two platforms. I'm going to be actually highlighting the two tabs, the first two tabs beyond the basic tab. We're in the basic tab right now, and of course we've been discussing that, and last week we went through the exposure section and we talked about how to correct for exposure and use your clippings and talk about those things. This week I'm going to actually go through the other tabs that are in here. I'm going to first highlight the tone curve tab and the detail tab in ACR, and then we're going to go right into Lightroom and be able to show you the same things there. These tabs are identical in both platforms. The same person, Thomas Knoll, is working on both the raw conversions on both of these platforms. So he's doing a lot of work with that. So you can tell they're from the pretty much the same programmer that's doing all of this. They have slightly different algorithms, but for the most part, they're absolutely identical. So when we get into the tone curve tab, you've got two different choices. You got the parametric or the point. The parametric is really nice because it goes into your different areas, your highlights, your lights, your darks, your shadows. So your lights is this first block right here, this first tonal range right here. The second one is your lights. The third one over is your darks, and then your shadows are the last ones over. The nice thing about this is you'll notice that they have these breaking points in each of this, and they set these at 25, 50, and 75. Those are kind of hard stops. It's like putting, clicking on a point on your curve tab to be able to lock it in. If you notice, we go to point. If you click on a certain point here, that puts in kind of a point that you're starting at. So if you didn't want to move anything, let's say in the shadow area, you would put in a point there to stop that. So when you moved your tone curve, you can see that very minimal movement is happening down below. This will help you to put that kind of a spot there to be able to not move in this. So when you're going to the parametric area, it's kind of done that for you. You can see that you can move these so that you could put your shadows in a certain area or not go past the certain areas. And then when you work with these particular sliders down below, it will work within the parameters that you set it at, which is really, really nice. So right now, if I'm moving this parameter, you can see that it's kind of moving from this point here, my light section. Now, if I wanted to add a breakpoint here, you can't do it here. What you would have to do is actually literally come over and move the starting point to figure out exactly where you're going to be there. So you can't actually put like a click point there to be able to hold that line. So you're going to have to do it now down below here using these items. So this will control your highlights, your lights, your darks, etc. on down the line. Everything is set at 0, so it's very easy to go in and be able to set that up. Now, most people, what they'll do is once this point has been done and you like an area that's always going there, a lot of people will come in here and actually say this is their new Camera Raw default. That will supersede the default that's going inside, that's loaded from Adobe. So if you want to set a new area there, just set your area and then set that as your new default, or save that as your new default. So this is kind of the curves area. If you're familiar with curves, this is a fabulous area to be working in. If you do want to go into your custom area, your curves area, you can actually just go in. What I just did there is I just pulled these points that I put in, and I just pulled them off. So if you ever want to try to start over again, this is exactly how you would do it, is just grab the point. The other thing you can do here is put in your kind of your contrast ratios. So if you want to go in from a linear or a medium contrast or a strong contrast, you can actually put that in. You can see that right now we're losing shadow detail because we have our clipping warnings on, and then you could come in and make adjustments for that, of course, on either end. So this is kind of a nice area to go in here. It's set at custom when you first come in, and the other thing you can do is actually set a particular channel. So instead of going into all, like using RGB completely, you can go into the red channel or the green channel or the blue channel and work within that parameter. So let's say that you decided that your shot was just a tidge on the warm side. You could easily come in here and from a mid-tone point of view, add a little warmth or take away a little warmth from this. As you can see, we're pulling it from the mid-tone value, adding some warmth, and we're going the other way and adding some blue. So you can do that with each individual channel. So this is a nice way to be able to do that. Once you click on a point, you can use your up and down or your side-to-side arrow keys on your computer screen to make these minute changes inside the file. And a lot of people like to do that. So once you have a click point that you've moved on, you can actually go in and make those changes, which makes it very, very nice. So that's the tone curve. The next one over is your detail tab. And this goes in and talks about your sharpening. Now, your default is set at 25 in this area. What I've done is I actually went through and I took off all of the sharpening that's done here because I do all of my sharpening in Photoshop through one of my actions. So I didn't want to sharpen it more than once. So what I did is I went in, got everything down to the lowest point and saved that as my new camera default, my new Camera Raw default, so that it would not set that minimum sharpening at 25. So you can actually go through here and do that if you wanted to. A lot of people like to do their sharpening there. I totally love doing sharpening here if that's what you want to do. But again, if you build it in elsewhere, you don't necessarily need to do it twice. The other thing that you're going to get here is your noise reduction area. So if you're someone who really likes to push those ISOs, you can come in here and take care of your noise reduction. So that's those two tabs. Let's take a look. We're going to hit cancel here, and I'm going to go into Lightroom. Let's take a look at the Lightroom interface. And again, you got the same tone curve. So the second zone here, same thing. Now they've called these regions, and you've got you can see your presets are set at 25, just like they are here. Now you'll notice that in your settings area, you can change your curve inside here. You can switch your linear right here. You get medium and strong. So you got the same thing. You can also switch into your individual channels so that you have that. So there's a lot of similarities with this. Now you'll notice here, you can actually come in and go into your point tab as well by just clicking on this little button here, and that'll adjust by going into your adjustment with your point totals that you want to use. So it's a nice area to be able to do that. So you've got the same ability inside Lightroom as you do in ACR, or vice versa. It depends on which scale you're looking at. Let's go ahead and pull this off, and we're just going to yank it off, and we're going to collapse it. So same tone curve. Now what we have is our detail tab right here. Same thing. You've got your sharpening and your noise reduction here. You'll notice that again, I took off my sharpening here. And what I did was I left some of my noise reduction areas on. Normally I have these down all the way to 0 here. So these are just things that you're going to want to preset for yourself when you go through. So these do the same things in both platforms. We're going to be talking about the other tabs again starting tomorrow and on Thursday. We'll kind of go through each one of those individually. And then next week, we're going to start doing some retouching. So it should be fun. We got a lot going on. Thanks for joining us here at Rick Trummer Consulting and Training. As always, I really thank you for watching, and stay tuned. And I'm getting a lot of great comments, and I really appreciate all of you out there in my audience. So thanks again, and I'll see you tomorrow.